Awesome. Well, it is 9:05 approximately, so we're going to go ahead and get started because I know we have a fabulous presentation planned for today. So hello, everyone. Nice to see you or hear you if you're on audio only. Matthew Hagum here. I'm one of the co-organizers of 1 Million Cups. We are powered by or caffeinated by the Kauffman Foundation. So I invite you to Google them and learn more about their organization. With that being said, we want you to enjoy this time. So grab your cup, your coffee, grab your notepad, get ready to really learn, because today is going to be, again, an educational experience. And so again, also, I want to remind you, mark your calendars. We do meet every Wednesday at 9 a.m. This little link tree here is your critical go-to resource. So if you just take that link and put it into your calendar, you'll always have the Zoom information you need to find your way here. And I also want to invite you to follow us on social media so that you can stay informed of the activities that we have going on. We've got a live person event coming up, which you'll learn more about in a second. So again, the link tree is there. I know we have a chat monitor as well. I believe, Tiara, you are a chat monitor for today. So if you check out the chat environment, you'll see that link gets posted there. And also we want to invite you to sign up for our emails. If you go to the link tree, you'll also be able to watch some of the replays of our previous experiences. It'd be a good place to see what other presentations have occurred and who is in our community. So that being said, sorry, I'm flipping through I want to remind you a few things about this group. 1 Million Cups is a community of entrepreneurs, and some of the things that make us distinct or differentiate us from the community. One, we are about presentations, not pitches. We're not trying to make the people on this call your customer, but rather to create the space for you to share your work. And so later on, we have a little bit of an exception to that today. We're doing an educational experience as opposed to an entrepreneurial pitch. But generally speaking, we want our presenters to really be able to share what they're doing and to invite people to offer them feedback. This is about connecting, not networking, at least in the traditional hunter sense. We want you to build great relationships with people so that first and foremost, we can build a strong community. And that being said, the community is intended to be radically inclusive. So we have a zero tolerance on anything that could cause harm to others. So be kind in your words, be kind in your intentions, be respectful of other people's opinions, thoughts, backgrounds, etc., to create that safe space for us here. We are a national community, 134 communities, over 3,500 attendees, all happening Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. So if you are interested in collaborating and connecting with the community at large, again, check out the website, 1 Million Cups, but also consider the possibility of attending some of the other ones in other time zones. I know Tiara has done that before. I commend you, Tiara, for getting up earlier to attend the earlier time zones. And 3 pillars of our community: education, presentations, and connections. Obviously, utilize the chat here to share your information, let other people know who you are and how to connect with you, so that we can actually have conversations beyond this community. Of course, we have our presentations, and if you are an entrepreneur, as Dan was highlighting, you are welcome to apply to present and share your startup business, your new business with the world. But today we're going to be focusing on education, which is another core pillar of this community, making sure that entrepreneurs have the resources they need to grow, to thrive, to succeed. Now, before we get to our presentation, I want to also remind you to save the date, February 16th. We have an in-person event. It's going to be hosted at an organization called Expansive, which is down in the Pioneer Square area. Again, subscribe to our newsletter and pay attention to our social media accounts so that you can stay informed on that event. And not lastly, I should also say special thanks to our community sponsors. The McLaughlin Method is a sponsor of ours. So we really appreciate your support and the support of those who have helped us along the way. We have a group of volunteers yes, volunteers who throw in their time to help make sure this community thrives. So please take a moment to connect with these people, get to know a little bit more about their businesses and what they're about, so that you can learn more how this community really stays together. And that being said, we are always looking for additional volunteers. If you have a skill set that you'd like to contribute, or maybe a specific task that you know could help us to make the difference in building our community, please reach out to us. We'd love to work with you. There's our email address, seattle@1millioncups.com. And so today we are doing an educational presentation. We have Stephanie from Counterweight Media who will guide us through a 6-minute presentation followed by a 20-minute Q&A. Now, as you're listening, I want to invite you to listen with the intention of learning something that you could apply towards your business, so that when we get into the Q&A portion of our conversation, the questions you're asking can help you to solve a problem that you might be facing this week, next week, or in the months ahead. And of course, after this, we will have some time to do breakout rooms and network, connect with the people in our community. So with that being said, I want to remind you, try to limit your distractions, try to silence your cell phone. Again, ask the question, how could this information apply to me? Take notes. And with that, please also use the raise hand function. If you have questions at the end, we'll make sure to tackle those as well. And so I think we are ready for you, Stephanie.
Awesome. All right, let me make sure I share one of the two monitors today. And all right, awesome. Well, thank you, Matthew. Of course, it's now 2022. This is going to be the first education presentation for 1 Million Cups Seattle. And talking to the organizers, especially Katie, who walked me through, was to basically, let's get back to basics. Let's talk about what's going to help your business in 2022, what's happening now. And of course, with everything going on in the world, digital marketing is something that we always get asked questions and information about. So based on that, what we're looking at is, what are the basics? How do we go back? We've heard plenty of different services, different people who talk about what they do, lead generation, but between different tactics, what is going to be really helpful for your return on investment? As either a startup or a small business, you're limited in the amount of marketing dollars. Which area should I basically spend my money on? What's going to be the best approach for me first? And so as a digital marketer, we break down both of these concepts into two categories. Just like as the beginning slide, we have searchability, the process of you being able to be found via search, someone looking for you, and what we would call shareability, the process of being found via someone sharing your information, getting more about you from a community level. So today, we're basically going to discuss your goal in terms of finding and developing the most effective strategy for your type of business within your industry. Now, to say, though, is that each strategy, either searchability or shareability, it might be different depending on what business you are. It's either going to be beneficial in one area, or it might be beneficial for another business, but not for you at all. You might hear, hey, my buddy told me that they started doing Instagram and it was a huge success. That may not be the same case for you. Would you want to spend your advertising dollars there? So right now, today is what we're going to talk about is the balance between the two and whether or not your business qualifies to be essentially both in the searchability category or the shareability category. But first, what is searchability? Well, when we think of search, we think of Google, search engines, Bing, Yahoo, Ask. There's so many different types of ways to search for information. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of people in the digital marketing space that use a lot of these amazing, wonderful buzz terms. And to a lot of small business owners and startups, that can be extremely complicated. There's search engine optimization strategy, technical on-site SEO, paid search, organic search. What does all of this mean? And it really comes down to not the definition of the strategy, but the overall intent. You are using these concepts essentially to be able to be found more prevalent in search advertising as opposed to social media or shareable advertising. So you want to create content, information that can be found from all these different sources if someone is looking for you, you want to be available. And you want to make sure that essentially how customers can find you via these platforms, via these strategies. So that's a searchability in a nutshell in terms of all of these buzz terms. Now, of course, what's an example of this? Well, let's say you're in trade services or professional services. People are going to be looking up something very specific about your businesses, usually a problem. Let's take an example. If you are a septic service company, it's very unlikely that Instagram in this case is going to work well for you. Very unlikely that your customers are going to be looking up different hashtags to verify whether or not you're a good septic cleaning company. So that would fall short in terms of getting customers to you. Now, of course, if you optimize for searchability and make sure that your emergency phone number comes up in Google, you're able to be found easily via the Maps feature. You have a lot of good review scores that helps you your reputation so that more customers will find you as opposed to competitors. This would be what we would consider in digital marketing a searchability or searchable strategy. And that would be ideal for this type of customer. Now, let's take the opposite of the coin. Let's talk about shareability. Social media platforms are a big aspect of being shareable. How do you get content out to a wide audience, a bunch of different platforms, a bunch of different people? Of course, we know all of the big guys out there, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, not as common in the United States, but WhatsApp is enormous. It's one of the top platforms in the world. So we have a bunch of terms that digital marketers use: social media marketing, content distribution, omni-channel marketing. There's so many different strategies involved in that, when in reality, you are trying to create content that is shareable by your customers being able to say, you know what, I like this company. I want to talk about them regardless of what platform I'm on. And one platform over another may be more beneficial for your business as opposed to being on some other platform or a platform that has a different audience or has a different type of how people share information. So what does that look like in terms of an example? Well, let's say, for example, that you're a brand new cosmetics brand and you decide to do the new thing of making it a mail order service, like a subscription box base. And so you decide, okay, I'm ready to absolutely get this out there. I want people to learn about my cosmetic products, lipstick, eyeshadow, everything. However, in that space, in your industry, this is very difficult to rank for those key terms. If you look up lipstick, cosmetics, usually people are searching either for, what's the best eyeshadows for a certain skin type in 2022. Like, you would only be able to get in front of people via search with what we would call long tail keywords. This could be a huge disadvantage because, again, you're spending so much of your time writing content to optimize for a very small amount of traffic, specific traffic, but a very small amount of traffic. So in this case, for this example, you would want to benefit from shareability tactics, of course. What's the best way to get your products out there for community groups? Can you get people to like the product, test the product? This could even come up with influencer marketing, reaching their audiences, having them share and share and share, so that you build essentially a community yourself as opposed to having people looking for your products and services. You want people to come to you based on a recommendation of someone else based on your content. So if we combine both of these concepts, you essentially have a balance between the two. Some businesses will do well by having both searchability aspects, people looking for very specific things they offer, or sometimes it's just easier and just better for your overall marketing spending budget, essentially, to create content that's going to be on social media platforms. It's good to consider which one's going to be your stronger tactic as opposed to being one that's not going to be not as much of a return on investment. So it really depends on your audience. It depends on the type of business you are, whether or not your audience is there, and how your audience is looking for things. In the case of the two examples, we have someone who has a problem, who's looking very specifically based on search intent that I need someone to fix this. Whereas makeup and cosmetics and things in that nature is more of, it's a nice to have. It's a product that I would love to get to know. It's something I'd like to learn about the brand as opposed to looking for that as it's so readily available. However, that being said, you also don't want to ignore, because there's always the potential aspect of someone looking for something about your business. And this might be a little bit of research you need to do for yourself, things to identify in terms of even asking your own current customer base. Is maybe they're searching for you, or they found something that so-and-so shared in terms of like a referral marketing or word of mouth strategy that's online that maybe you missed, maybe something you overlooked that you could really to put your time in and make it work for you. Regardless, there's always going to be certain tactics, regardless in the searchability category or shareability category, that's just going to work for you in particular. That's just going to be your niche. That's going to be something that you're going to want to dive and put your investment dollars into. So with a combination of both, essentially you're giving the opportunity of having customers look for you both from a search side and a shareable side. Just probably preface one over the other as your first initial foray into digital marketing to get the best return on investment. So that's it. Oops, I went too far. I was going to go there. So at this point, of course, these are very overarching concepts. All of you saw a bunch of the different very nitty-gritty services involved with each of those. So I'm happy to answer any questions in terms of specifics or parameters regarding to any of those.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. So yes, we are going to shift into the Q&A portion. Well timed, Stephanie. You did a great job. I appreciate that. So please raise your hand and I will ask you to unmute yourself in the order in which you occur on my side. So Dan, we will start with you and we're going to do 20 minutes of questions.
Stephanie, thank you. I have a question on, as far as the different platforms and different approaches that work for the individual businesses. If you have a business, is it worth researching, like what you mentioned competitors? So is it a good tactic to research what they're doing and try to like match and what maybe your competitors are doing so that you're there alongside them? Or would it be better to differentiate yourself and maybe leverage other platforms that maybe they aren't, or maybe you have to balance the two? What's a good tactic when it comes to that?
So it's always good to know what your competition's doing, because essentially you can get an idea and sort of figure out and gauge where they are at in terms of their own marketing. The biggest thing I find with customers in my experience is consistency. So even if they're watching what someone else is doing, sometimes they forget to look at what they need to do themselves. In terms of competition and with both strategies, content's usually the key indicator, where it's like, oh, so-and-so did this infographic, maybe I need to make an infographic too. That sort of elements, the concept makes sense to do something similar, but the details of that content, in terms of the infographic, you might say, oh, my competition made an infographic about this topic and they got it, really widely shared. They put it on this platform. So taking that into maybe I should make an infographic on a different topic would be the way to go, as opposed to let me do the same topic from there. So it's more of the framework, look at your competition and what they're doing overall, kind of pick out what seems to be successful. In my industry, we use a lot, especially when it comes to search engine optimization, different visibility tools that will look on tracking for traffic as well as keywords people are looking for in Google. And so we kind of look at that based on the competition. Sometimes we can even get snapshots from competitors in terms of their ad copy. And so we can sort of see where they are spending their advertising dollars and whether or not it's working to determine, should we make a competing ad? Should we be making competing content? It's never exactly the same as what everyone else is doing. It's good to know, but taking that information and saying, okay, they're doing this. How can I do this better? How can I change tactic to make sure that I'm getting out stuff more consistently? Getting out something is still better than nothing. And even if it seems like, oh gosh, that other company is doing work 5+ people more than what I can do myself, that doesn't mean you can't have that one piece that you work yourself more on that could give you a growth in your own business. You don't have to worry about the level of how much your competition is doing.
Thank you, Stephanie. Leif, next, please.
Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Women in Cups friends. Great presentation. I appreciate learning about this. I like that it was very focused on two concepts, and because of course it can go like to the moon and back if you wanted it to. Stephanie, I had a question for you. I work with companies all day long, and a lot of them are small companies, and they don't really have anyone to get the marketing guidance on. And so often they'll ask me stuff, and I am not that person. But I do have a question about your searchability and shareability like ideas. Now, before you embark on those, is there like prerequisites that you need to be doing? For me, I'm considering a lot of branding questions. I have a lot of clients that are like all over the place. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's this font, sometimes it says these words, sometimes the company's called that. Like, how important is that to corral before doing that? I've heard that it's like hugely important, but is that still like the wisdom these days?
It comes back to consistency. Brand guidelines is extraordinarily nice to have. It's very unlikely. And Leif, knowing your background a little bit more, I'm probably the businesses you work with are more B2B or corporate space, if I can say that. So I know from also experience that a lot of companies that are in that space is get that person to go do it, or this person, it's your turn, or hey, you can go work on it. And so it's a lot of juggling of who got the last file of the logo type, who updated it from here. It's usually less of someone being designated as a staff member to do it. And for small businesses, that's really hard to get somebody. Again, it comes back to consistency. And a lot of times with all the stuff here, which is sort of, I guess, the kernel about this is that you don't have to do everything. And a lot of small businesses feel that maybe they're going to miss a trend. So I need to go do this now. Back when I first started, Facebook was the big thing. Like all small businesses suddenly said, you can make a business page. I got to get on that. And what happened is that some customers even would come to me years later and said, we haven't posted in 2 years. Does that matter? Does it still work? We have 2,000 likes. Isn't that mean something? And the biggest issue is just, if they're not going to use it, don't use it. If there's a bunch of different old files that everyone's using that's inconsistent, it's not, I shouldn't say it's not that hard. It's hard for the first time to essentially say, okay, here's the file folder. Everyone use logo A. We have this font on your computer. Do you have it installed? Use your stuff for that. People in the grand scheme of things, unless it's brand related and it's something that's coming from an official source, like an email newsletter or on the website itself, don't particularly care if the font is changed in the body of your email. Don't really care if the signature isn't completely perfect compared to the website. It's more about, okay, if this is coming from the website, it needs to be correctly on one place. It doesn't have to be everywhere. But again, consistency of just having that available is usually the biggest issue. So my recommendation is to suggest to your clients when they ask this, like, what should I do? Put a file folder together. Say, here's our marketing stuff. Here's the logo you're supposed to be using. Here's the font you're supposed to be using. If they don't have stuff ready or professionally created, it's not, I shouldn't say it's not inexpensive, but there are ways to get something that's doctored, at least into a vector file from an old style from years ago, to have it ready and available. That's just some, a couple graphic design hours to do it. So just getting something completed could take a day or two of emails and phone calls to just have a file folder for everyone to use.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will keep this in mind. Thanks, Stephanie.
All right, Lisa, you are next.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Stephanie. I haven't been here for a few months because my schedule changed. And this morning I was able to join, and this is so perfect. Thank you so much, because I'm a wardrobe consultant and a fashion designer, and I am 6 months into my business. And I just had a meeting yesterday with someone about SEO. And I've been putting out content on YouTube, and I do a newsletter, and I have a blog, and it just seems like 6 months of that, it really hasn't helped my SEO. And so it's hard to know, as a one-person business here who's not a marketing specialist, where I should put my energy. So I had a meeting, someone led me to someone who does SEO work, and I talked to him yesterday, and it's a $1,000 package for him to just hone in on my SEO and get the keywords and, just do a bunch of stuff so I could actually, hopefully after, he thinks maybe about 3 months, I could be relatively searchable on Google. Like if someone types in Seattle stylist right now, like I'm nowhere near on there. So this was really, really great. And what else did I write down?
I have a couple of comments already from that.
Go for it.
So 3 months for a 2 keyword search query Seattle stylist, where you've mentioned, is probably a high value, high traffic keyword if they suggested that to you. 3 months is not a long enough time frame. for that
Yeah.
type of keyword and the amount of content. So a concept I usually tell a lot of people is imagine your website like a pyramid, and your main domain, like your home page, is at the very top of the pyramid. The structure that's pushing everything up, you can call it a Christmas tree if you want to, and the star is your home page. All the stuff underneath essentially is bolstering that domain name in terms of authority, content, keywords, telling search engines, what are you essentially? What do you do? And so the amount of content required for something that is what we consider general key terms is a ton. It also takes a lot of time, especially over the last couple of years. I would even say this past year, Google indexing has been way delayed longer. I mean, we have our own SEO manager as well, and 3 months is kind of an unrealistic time frame right now. I would say you're looking at 9 months to a year of
Right.
content needed. So that's a way, and I know for a small business, that's like a year, but they said 3
Well,
months.
it's already
Like,
been 6 months since I've been in business. So
well, the other curious question I have is the content you mentioned, YouTube and other places, similar to what I mentioned in the presentation. Is your consumer base really there? Are they consuming that content from YouTube to say, okay, I'm ready to be in a purchase decision to look for a stylist, someone specific? And that's going to be less about your SEO strategy and more about being your, sharing strategy, putting out content to have other people to share, to be able to recognize you, find you, and come back to you. Versus search engine optimization is more about people searching for very specific terms, looking for, as you said, Seattle stylist. I need help with my wardrobe. I need help with people doing very specific things. Both of them are two different strategies, and they're not really, they can help each other. I won't say that they don't help each other, but they're not, working on one is not going to suddenly make the other one better. From SEO standpoint, I don't know what includes in the package or everything else. I don't know what website you are on, but usually the first step in any type of search engine optimization is based on platform. And that's one of the buzz terms I mentioned on here, technical on-site SEO, which is to make sure your website has the right framework in terms of being available for search engines. So you can put in that keyword content, metadata, schema markup, all that stuff onto the page content to then be found by Google. But as I said, with the pyramid, you need all that content with many different types of focus keywords, essentially, to boost your domain up. You might even make a dedicated landing page for literally Seattle stylist. And it could be a long content landing page on your website that just talks about those items only, essentially, for it to rank. And that might be something where, okay, I know that people that I talk to found or potentially could find me by typing in these specific words into Google. Great. I need to make content that's going to basically talk about those specific words, articles, resources, different things for you to actually do any type of content distribution. Do I need backlinks? Do I need any type of PR? Should I not only make a blog article for myself? Should I ask a company that represents other stylists or says, here's a selection of different people? Can they write about me and essentially backlink to me and my services? And so there's a lot of different concepts and different small things you can do to do that specifically. But between the two, in terms of sharing on YouTube and content there, that will help you overall, but that doesn't necessarily help you in terms of keyword search traffic. In terms of like a package, is it like a one-time thing? Is it like you're paying them once, or is this a monthly reoccurring thing?
One time.
So probably in this instance, they're going to go through the site. I don't know what platform you're on, but my assumption would be it's either going to be a content management system like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla,
Squarespace.
So Squarespace is actually not a CMS, but a website builder, and they're proprietary, meaning they're self-hosted. So I'm trying not to get too complicated, but it means there's only so much they can do as an SEO in order to make changes into the structure of the website. So essentially, they're very likely taking a look at the overall site map, making sure that if there's any / very specific services after that, keeping things short and sweet, putting pages on top of other pages that makes sense, so that internal linking makes sense, editing the metadata, essentially. So description, title, that's probably what they're going to be doing in that package. Now, that's great, but that's going to take time. And the question is, you won't know when unless you have some type of tracking. I don't know if you have Google Analytics installed or Google Search Console. I believe Squarespace allows those tracking snippets. That would be my other suggestion. so that rather than not knowing, you at least have some data coming back to you to see, okay, did it work? Did that $1,000 I put in benefit me 3 to 6 months from now? Did I see some type of return on it? So I would look into Google Analytics, Google Search Console, that perspective, if that was worth it, if you're going to move forward with that.
So Stephanie, we have about 6 minutes left and 3 more people with questions. So we'll do 3 minutes per person. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, sorry, 2 minutes per person. We'll make it work. We'll fit it in. All right. All right. Over to you, Stephanie. And
I'll be more specific and focus.
no worries.
There's a lot of different things when it comes to all this stuff.
I know it's juicy for sure, but I would encourage anybody on the line, if you have follow-up questions, to obviously reach out to Stephanie. I know personally, Stephanie has helped me like solve some critical marketing problems right out of the gate. So she's a wealth of resources and worth connecting. Katie, over to you, please.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure that, so for me, this helps a lot, reminding myself that like, I don't have to maybe try so hard on SEO or feel like I'm behind, because I don't think that it's really going to serve me. So yay. But so then I'm more in the shareability camp, right? And then, so I guess the like thematic question that I have is like, what makes things more shareable? And like, are there things I should be keeping in mind? Because I feel like I'm creating content with the hopes that people share it, and I don't feel like the motivation there is right, but I am trying to figure out how to frame myself as I go in to do content in a way that it would help my customer and that it's like a good idea.
Right.
That's my rough question.
Right, exactly. And so Katie, just to make sure I remind myself as well, of course, you're in professional services, you mainly work to B2B. So a lot of your stuff is shared, for example, platform on LinkedIn. So
Yes.
essentially what's happening is that you're creating content in hopes of there's going to be social parameters and backlinking back to your website as you share it through LinkedIn. Usually it's a recommendation I have is once you get to basically a good solid foundation of your own website or your own sort of community-based platform. So somewhere where you can send people, essentially. It could be an email list, it could be an e-commerce store, it could be even a forum or your own blog content. It's somewhere you're sending people to essentially reap the benefits of those social indicators. If you're sharing content within platform, which of course these big boy platforms want you to do, they don't want their community members to leave. That's why, unfortunately, a big aspect now is pay to play. Essentially, you have to pay Facebook, LinkedIn not so much, but because it's still more network driven, but essentially you have to pay something to get in front of other people. I would benefit that more of I would suggest as a benefit more of when you're sharing content is making sure that you can collect some type of conversion. So if someone wants something, a good common strategy for B2B is, let's say you wrote 500 words about an interesting topic and you added it as a company post and you decide to say, hey, would you like to read the rest of, I've seen this with small books where it's like, here's chapter 1. And would you like to read the rest of this free ebook? Great. Download it here. You'll get a free copy. Don't forget, if you want more tips, more information, more marketing guidance, or what have you, more guidance from your services, essentially, you have a connection, a communication connection with them off platform, because these platforms are not your friends. Essentially, they want you to pay them. You're on there because your audience is, not because you like LinkedIn and you want to tattoo them on your arm. It's like you're kind of a necessary evil I have to work with. And so essentially, by doing that, you start controlling your community because you're taking them into your own platform, your own space, like an email newsletter or back to your own website. They'll prohibit you to do this, but there's a lot of fun, easy on-platform strategies like posting it and clicking here now, giving them a little tidbit, and then saying, come on, let's go to my website. Let's go take a look a little bit more here. That would be my recommendation in terms of getting it more people. That would be better in terms of making that conversion a higher quality, as opposed to just having more likes and more engagement and more reaction. That's good and all, but it doesn't bring the final conversion at the end of the day. That doesn't become an ongoing customer.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tira, you are next. And then Sarah, you will be our last person before we shift into our breakout rooms. Tira, go for it.
Thank you, Matthew. So my question, there's so many options out there, email marketing, influencer marketing, and I think I'm at a point where I figured out what kind of works for me. I'm not, just throwing things on the wall anymore, but I still don't have structure for it. So what do you recommend? Like the first thing that comes to my mind is creating a marketing plan. But I've reached out to different people in the marketing world, and it doesn't seem like they're providing what I think that I need, but I also don't know what that is. So for me, a left brain person, how can I see all of this and know exactly what to do and when to do it, I guess is my question.
Yeah,
in a form that I can understand.
Right. And so the biggest thing that I think marketing in general and why and how I started my agency is a lot of this, I think, gets forgotten. That's common sense. Your customer, how they interact, sort of what they're talking, their questions, their feelings and asking, but maybe there isn't a specific type of skill set for being on a certain platform. And that sometimes could just be a bullet point list. Okay, I need to have more interaction on LinkedIn. What's the recommendation on how to do that? Okay, the first recommendation is I need to start posting. Okay, if I need to start posting, what's an ideal post? How do I write an ideal post? And then you sort of break down all of that sort of research in the process. If for me, I'm a visual based person, so I will like literally draw in my work planner and stuff like, okay, process A, people come through this circle, then they go to this circle, then they go to this circle. And what does that look like? And what does that look like each step of the way? It's tedious. It's a longer process. And I will say, honestly, a marketing consultant might like say, oh, well, in this circle, we can do, A, B, and C. And we recommend how to do A, B, and C, which can kind of speed you up. Maybe if you want to look at specifics, like, hey, I need someone who's good at writing for this part because I know this isn't my strong point. At the same time, that's something you can easily do yourself. It's something that no matter what, you are the main person who knows your audience. You're the main person who knows your business. And most of the time as marketers, we ask as best as we can and communicate to our customers what that looks like. Now, as a service-based business, marketing still is that there are things that we use that is like templated. That's sort of like, okay, this is a common question by our customers. We suggest filling this out. And I think that's what's happening to you is that someone's saying like, okay, this problem I think sounds like all of these other businesses we work with problems. So therefore we're going to put this into this template because we know that worked for A, B, and C. That may not work for you because it's not the same situation. So taking that template and that parameters of that and pulling and dissecting that down is something I think only you can do. And it's a longer process, but it's so much more rewarding because you get to see the full picture. You understand it because you're living it. You're essentially going through your customer's journey and understanding what they're looking at, why. It's a lot of work, don't get me wrong, in terms of not only finding that out and in terms of writing it all out and then actually stick with it, essentially. But each element of those you can build out. You can say, okay, here's what I need to do here. Here's how the best strategies to do that. So
thank you.
I hope that's helpful. It really comes down to just figuring it out and then putting it together and then finding the best way to do that online.
Thank you. Sarah, you are our last question, and we will make the question and response prompt so that we can get into our breakout room shortly. Sarah, over to you.
Sure. So my question is about video. We know that particularly with things like Reels on Facebook and Instagram and stories, video is very powerful for shareability. But I wondered for searchability, what's the value of including video on, say, product pages on a website? Does that boost SEO at all?
So that's an excellent question. And one, I hate to say that I'm guilty of pontificating. So back, I'd say in 2018, it was all the rage. All people with who are in SEO, and myself included, would say that if you embedded videos on YouTube and into your website, it would help your domain. Okay. It might have in some point, I'd say there was more of a correlation in the evidence, but today it does not. It does not matter. And the best way to see in terms of videos is basically video on platform. And a lot of those places, Facebook Live, for instance, there's sort of a hierarchy and tier in terms of content, what is more likely to be pushed out on the platform. So live video is first, standard video is second, typically. Okay. And so if you're doing video on these platforms, make it available, searchable within their platform.
Okay.
YouTube is an entire search engine in itself. So if you have stuff or products, that's why influencer marketing is such a huge thing, because essentially they're making content for said platform with a community still there, that it's highly found and searchable and has social triggers. So from a shareability, video is excellent because it's we engage with visual stimuli. So it's like wonderful things to use in so many different places. From a search standpoint, embedding it into your website to help your website, it doesn't. It does help with conversions. It makes people buy your product because you're like, ooh, there's a video of it, but it does not assist in terms of embedding it specifically based on platform to give you any type of magical numbers, essentially.
Great, cheers.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, so we are going to shift our energy a bit and move on into, hold on. Stephanie, can you stop your screen share for me, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. All right, that works. Let me try that again.
I did not have chat open, so I don't know if there's additional questions in chat.
No worries. I think there was some good discourse in the chat, so you might want to scan through it and see if there's anybody you want to follow up with for sure. And again, please do connect with Stephanie. So again, before we move into the breakout rooms, I want to just say this. First of all, thank you, Stephanie, for your contribution and your wisdom. I personally have benefited. I know others have, I'm sure, on this call. And normally, if you were sort of our typical presenter, we'd ask you this question. I'm going to ask you this question anyways, because, well, you've given us a gift. So in brief, is there anything that this community can do to support you, Stephanie, and your business as you're moving forward?
I love what I do. I didn't start what I do because I didn't. My big thing that I get more than anything else is companies who come to me years down the road saying, I spent tens, not even $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000, tens of thousands of dollars trying to put money into a strategy that never worked, that never benefited them. They didn't understand why, or I hate to say it, got sold on the sale as opposed to the actual production value, what happened. So for me, what can the One MC community do for me is please have people reach out to me. I love talking about it. I love getting to know businesses. I wouldn't be an entrepreneur otherwise. That's why I'm here, is that I've always been part of that entrepreneurial startup role. So I would love to be in front of the person before they spent that kind of money, because I've have customers who've done that and have gone through 3 websites, 4 websites, multiple different companies, had to rip everything apart and do it again. And it's painful as a business owner because you feel like I should be doing the right thing. So I'd love it if people would feel open to sharing my contact information, not even for us services or a billable reason, just a connection. And again, we're missing out on the social aspects these days. So I'm absolutely happy to talk with people and get to know other businesses and work with other people. So
thank you, Stephanie. All right, so for those of you who might be interested in presenting at this in the future or know somebody who might, of course, check out 1millioncups.com/Seattle. All you need is the fact that you're trying something new. Maybe you're launching a new product or a new service within your business. You all ultimately are willing, most importantly, to ask for help, because this is what this community is all about and that you want to learn. So again, check out that link if you're interested in presenting in the future. And again, we are looking for volunteers. This organization does not run itself, but is ran by great people. So please reach out if you are interested in supporting us. And remember that this is your go-to resource. This Linktree link right here will get you the Zoom link every Wednesday. It never changes. Sign up form for our emails, watch replays, and connect with us on social media. A quick note, next week, we will be doing a special version of 1 Million Cups. I believe, Tiara, this is the teacup one. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So we're going to be kind of just discussing some different situations in entrepreneurship. I think our focus is going to be on planning for 2022 and how and celebrating our wins from last year. So it's a great chance for us all to kind of communicate and get our thoughts and ideas out there as well.
Got it. Thank you, Tiara, for filling us in. And so we are going to move into the breakout rooms. We've automated or randomized the who you'll be ending up with, but use this time to get to know the other person. Ask them for their contact information. Make sure that you really have the intention to connect beyond this meeting. That's how we really can support each other above and beyond the learning that's available in this space, and get to know them personally. You know, it's good to ask questions about, you know, what they enjoy doing on their free time, so you can really paint the picture of who this person is and how you might be able to support them even beyond their business. So with that, I'm going to stop the screen share and we are going to move into our breakout rooms. I think, Tiara, you have that set up, is that correct?
Yes, I do. I just want to make sure they don't end after 3 minutes. There you go.
Thank you.
So should be there now.
All right.